Good afternoon and indeed good evening, depending on where you are tuning in from. A big welcome to all our alumni community members joining us online today. My name is Michelle Power and I am the Global Alumni Relations Coordinator for UCD. Today's webinar is part of a mini-series called Global Perspectives supporting the UCD Festival and features UCD alumni, academics and friends worldwide in conversation. These lively discussions focus on global topics of interest and importance to our UCD community and beyond. Today's webinar is a wonderful conversation entitled UCDVO, Connecting Communities from Delhi to Dublin. It features Caroline Mangan, UCD Global's Global Experience Manager, who will be in conversation with Dr Sunita Kaistha, founder of the Society for Working Life. Caroline and Sunita will discuss the community development projects that have taken place over the past 18 years and the impact this has had both on the Delhi communities and the volunteers from UCD. UCD Volunteers Overseas is a registered charity that offers a volunteering and global citizenship programme for UCD students, staff and alumni. Since the charity was founded in 2003, UCDVO has worked with partners in India, Haiti, Nicaragua, Tanzania and Uganda on a range of community development, education and health programs. UCDVO currently has 5 partners in India: New Delhi, Assam and Meghalaya in the north and Andhra Pradesh in the south. Before I hand you over to our speakers, I would like to highlight the great work that they have done. Prior to her role in UCD Global, Caroline was the manager of UCD Volunteers Overseas. Her involvement with UCDVO stems back to her student days at UCD. In 2004, she travelled to Delhi along with Father Tony Coote and a team of 32 other student volunteers. Caroline's guest, Dr Sunita Kaistha, has a PhD in international trade and more than 4 decades of teaching experience in the University of Delhi. She runs 2 non-profit organisations in the areas of literacy for girls and skills training for women. She also creates networks among academics, practitioners and universities. She has been collaborating with UCD Volunteers Overseas since its foundation in 2003 and has oversight of the Community Education Development Centre, which was built in a slum colony in Delhi in 2008 with funding from Irish Aid. So without further ado, I will hand you over to these 2 amazing women for what will no doubt be a fantastic and insightful conversation. Over to you, Caroline.
Hello, Sunita. It's great to be able to connect with you for this conversation today. Really lovely to see you and to see the beautiful Indian colours that you're wearing today.
Thank you. Thank you. I was looking forward actually to seeing you, Caroline, and I am delighted to have this opportunity.
Yeah, I think, it's been so many years of us working together over, I think, since I first met you was 17 years ago now. So I think through our conversation today, we'll have an opportunity maybe to share some of the highlights, the insights, the learning. And I know I always find our conversations to be quite uplifting and refreshing. So I hope we can share some of that with those joining us today.
I am sure, and I'm looking forward to this opportunity of sharing some nostalgia. But I would also like to take this opportunity, Caroline, to thank UCDVO and all the volunteers who've supported the Society for Working Life, SWL, and later on WWHI, our sister concern, over these last actually 18 years. So it's a long time.
Yeah. And I suppose we should mention that at the outset that our friendship has spanned almost 17 years since I first went as a student volunteer to UCDVO and has been working in Delhi for the 18 years. But through that time, I've certainly had many trips to India. You've had a couple of trips to Ireland. There's been lots of back and forth, whether via email, WhatsApp, and I don't think we would have ever imagined being able to sit and chat on a Zoom platform. It would have been a lot more efficient for all of the planning and the preparation work that we had to do over the years. So it's really nice to just take this time out now today and to reflect on some of the highlights, I guess. But before we delve into that, Sunita, I'm conscious of, you know, what's happening in the world around us at the moment, and I think it's important that we acknowledge where we're speaking from, both physically and our own lived experience. And, you know, it's been such a challenging year globally, and we've really had to adapt to how we live, how we access education, access basic services, all that I suppose we do together. And how are you at the moment, and how is the situation in Delhi at present?
Caroline, of course, these are not happy times. I am so happy that at least we are talking, even through Zoom. It is a great opportunity for us. But definitely things are not good in Delhi. Especially the second lockdown has been very tough. Not only on us, I think in Delhi, the most affected are the middle classes and the upper middle classes and the rich. We've lost a number of near ones, and the age it varies from the 20s to the 80s. So, and it's COVID-related deaths. It's been tough finding oxygen. It's been tough finding beds in Delhi. It was not geared for this. But nobody expected more than 30,000 people suddenly needing hospital beds. In the community, the Community Education and Development Center, which was built with support of UCDVO. Thank you, UCDVO. Truly, thank you. Because that has become a focal point for distribution. In fact, I think we shared some photos with you where with COVID protocols, a few people come at a time and take the dry rations, as we call it, some stationery kit for the children, some hygiene kit for the women. And these are various things. The dry rations, of course, is, I mean, you'd be surprised to know that basic thing like salt was the need of the hour. I was surprised because salt is, if I say it in Indian currency, it's 20 rupees. So that's a lot of money in that sense. It's not even 20 cents, you know, but it's a lot of money. So things like we wanted to give things like sanitary pads for the women, that was distributed. Stationery, the children wanted drawing books, they wanted color pencils, paints. We needed to get them out of this, you know, this unhealthy thinking. And schools are closed, as you all been reading about it. So what do these children do who don't have access to online education? Because it's a community we are talking about of the poor. So we were distributing these kits, and we still are, and we continue to do that. And the program continues with the distribution. But the center by itself has become a community space. And they look at it fondly and they remember how it is built. Many of the people live there, their children have grown up. So that's how it goes. And together with the WWHI, we are one actually, SWL and WWHI. We have device systems where fortnightly we are distributing dry rations, some paracetamol now, this time, and you know, the stationery and hygiene kits. So that's what it is like.
And certainly, I know, like when the words social distancing and self-isolation and quarantine, when they became kind of part of our everyday language last year, one of the things that really kind of came to my mind was, you know, how are those things possible in a slum community, which is already so overcrowded, where personal space and social distancing is not really a practical or feasible reality or possibility in many communities. And I know through conversations with some of our past volunteers who have spent time in Delhi, we all kind of had a similar question about how is this going to work in communities where space and health and access to basic resources, you know, was already so limited. So how are the women and the children and the men and boys and those who we know and who we've worked with in the community of Sangam Vihar, how are they adapting to the requirements to socially distance and so on?
Caroline, excellent question, because we ourselves, that was the first thing. Amita, my partner, as you know, and part of and who is running SWL and WWHI with me. We both had we actually were very concerned about this. And fortunately, the immunity levels in these areas is much higher than what you and I have. So first thing, it has not spread that much. Because when it spreads, they're very careful. And there I must give credit to our government, because they have made isolation places huge, tented accommodation, huge. They've taken from the charitable institutions, they've taken from the religious bodies, huge spaces where you can be isolated. But unfortunately, if you're a little serious, you have no choices. You have to go to the hospital. And that's where the space is lacking, where there is no, where the oxygen beds are not there or the ventilators are not there. So when you have a mild attack, the family itself has been very careful. In fact, it's surprising, even in 3 rooms or 2 rooms, they just isolate that person. And the whole community contributes, in the sense they don't allow that person to come out. And they are, as you know, the feeling of community is very strong in these areas. So whether it's food or medicines or help or asking the children to go and stay in the neighbor's house, that all works. So it's truly, when they come to know somebody has COVID, it's a nightmare for the entire lane, forget the one house. And they all actually have been able to do a stellar job of isolating that person. If it becomes more people, 5, 6 people, then they send them to the isolation places. And the government sends their, vans and all that, and they phone them up and they are taken. The deaths in those areas are much less. Unfortunately, what happens is that many of the people don't inform us, because it is like a normal flu. And because of the strictness in Delhi, many of them want to run back to their villages. That is their first thing. I will go home and I will get all right. In the bargain, they're infecting a lot of people. These migrants who go. See, there are no tests done as such. So they just leave and they are going by buses and trains, because nothing is closed down this time. Unfortunately, the villages are getting infected. But what I understand from the latest reports, the villagers themselves have become smart, and they are making quarantine centers in the outskirts of the village for anybody coming from town. So that is something, so therefore I personally feel the villagers are doing a good job. The communities are doing an excellent job. So it is worrying. We are worried that the third wave will attack the poor and the villagers. Up to now, it has not come in those large swats, as we call them, huge amount of people. No, I don't see that much in Sangam Vihar, where our community is centered.
Yeah, and it really highlights just the value of creating that community education development center back in 2008.
My God.
As well, I think us touching on some of the context of the communities is really helpful, because I know a lot of our alumni and past volunteers who have been out in Delhi have been asking these questions, wondering how the communities are doing. So thank you, Sunita, for shining a light on that for those who have been inquiring and sending their regards to you and to the communities in Sangam Vihar in particular. I'd like to kind of delve a little bit into the history of UCDVO and those initial contacts and how this relationship has come about. For those who are listening in, they may be aware of Father Tony Coote, who was the founder of UCDVO and the chaplain at UCD, and sadly passed away in August 2019. But it was that initial contact that Tony made with you, Sunita, that really has had such a significant impact for thousands of people throughout India, throughout the world, because UCDVO since expanded throughout the world. And I would say hundreds of students in Delhi as well who have volunteered, and now thousands of student volunteers who have come through the UCDVO program since 2003. Could you take us back a little bit to that first meeting and first interaction with Tony and how this partnership has come about?
Well, it really takes me way back. And it was the year 2002, and we had just established SWL. In fact, SWL is established in October 2002, and by November, December 2002, I get an email. And let me tell you that I was one of I knew how to do emails by then. So we were on email, and he had a contact with Sister Agatha, who was my former principal at the Jesus and Mary College. She was Irish, and she had settled in retirement near Dublin. And Sister Agatha contacted another sister of the Jesus and Mary sisters, Sister Dorothy. Unfortunately, both of them are not with us. We lost Sister Dorothy this year, early this year, late last year, and Sister Agatha some years back. So they asked if anybody was interested in doing this program, because Tony had contacted, and I will call him Tony because that's what I always called him. She said, would you be interested? Because Sister Dorothy knew about my about my work, about my development work, how I was taking training in it, and I was interested in this. And she was also my present principal at the time of when this was happening. She said, would you like to do it? I said, yes. I had some experience, very little experience with Canada World Youth. And I told her, are you sure? She said, why don't you talk to Sister Tony? And then you'll know if you can be sure or not. And I did that. And of course, we didn't have much of a conversation, but it was more of email. And Tony, being Tony, sent me 4 lines. The rest was all understood. So I said, what do you want? He said, we'll arrive with 20 students. I said, what do you want? And he just gave me a brief list. Stay, food, places to work. That's it. And I started working on it. I must say, the first batch arrived end of June, July. That is the worst time to be in Delhi. And Caroline, you know that. It's hot, it's humid, and hot, I mean, for people who don't know, 40 degrees centigrade, and the humidity is touching 80%. So it was horrible, but I had a group which was raring to go, very enthusiastic, all undergraduate students from various disciplines. And I had these Indian volunteers who were actually children of friends, because that is the first, but all of them were students, university students. And we all pitched with each other, and we divided them into groups and subgroups. And we had 3 or 4 places where they could work, including a small literacy center in the village, the Mother Teresa Center, and a couple more. And that was the first experience. And then they came and saw the place, and they said, we'd like to build something. And they started building a small school. I mean, it took time because it was only 3 weeks or 4 weeks when they were working. So that first visit was an eye-opener. But the best was that after 1 month, after the end of the visit, they said, we're coming back. And I was pleasantly surprised because, there are glitches when you start a program. And first and foremost, we had to organize the food. Now, I didn't have a clue of what the Irish ate. In the sense that I knew you love potatoes, but and Indian food is curries, and it's not bland, and all those things. But we did manage because I didn't want them to fall sick. That was another thing. You see, and there is a very big thing called Delhi belly, which you've all heard. So therefore, ice boxes were organized in that they were taking bottled water, and the iceman used to visit their hostel every morning. So
I remember that is such a strong memory for me, actually, of my first time in Delhi, of seeing a man on a bicycle with this huge open block of ice, just with a bit of twine around it on the back carrier of a bicycle. And it would start out, I imagine, from wherever he was as a huge block of ice. But then by the time he cycled through the heat, it became it was still a sizable block of ice. And I used to watch him in the morning before we would go to our volunteer sites. And he would like totally just hack into that block of ice, divide it up in across the cooler boxes. And then we'd put our mineral water bottles into the boxes and off we'd go. It's such a strong, vivid memory. I'd never seen anything like that. So it really stands out for me.
I'm glad you shared that, because I think your experience of that, I mean, by the time you people came, we said, no, we're not going to serve ready-made food, you know. You can eat in a nearby place, because it was too difficult for us to give a menu. Like I said, many of the Irish, we used to organize breakfast. Many of the Irish said they didn't want breakfast. And for us, I mean, as a development person, as a person with little experience, I used to say you must eat something and go, because many of the places had no food. Yeah. So even if you took fruit with you, that's not sufficient, you know, yeah. And it's very hot. The climate makes a lot of difference for a number of the things you do in a place. And of course, every place is different.
And I think actually Tony captures that really well in the book which he wrote just before he passed away, the year before, called Live While You Can. And he recounts his first meeting with you. So I'm going to just read a short extract from Tony's book. It's on page 63 of Live While You Can. So he says, as soon as we left the airport building in Delhi, we hit a wall of heat, even though it was only early morning. I'd never experienced anything like it. Within a short time, our clothes were wet and sweat was running down our backs. The heat was so intense you could smell it. It was still early in the morning when we arrived at a hostel, and I happily climbed into bed. After what seemed like only a couple of hours, there was a knock on the door to tell me I was wanted downstairs. I went down with Aoife to meet our contact Sunita, who explained that the students would work on a range of projects, including an orphanage run by the Missionaries of Charity, which was founded by Mother Teresa. They would help build a sports ground in a slum area and work in another orphanage called Salam Balak. I was amazed how quickly our students got stuck into their various projects. I was also amazed at their confidence. I was comparing myself to them at their age and thinking I was never so confident. The following year, I brought back another group to Delhi, this time over 30 students. And it's so lovely to have that captured by Tony in the book. And when I was reading back over it yesterday, I was reflecting on the point that he mentions there about the confidence in the student volunteers. But actually, I really feel, and having been a student volunteer out in Delhi with Tony, that confidence only actually came about as a result of Tony and yourself giving us the opportunity to participate in a community development project and perhaps kind of, I suppose, making us realize our potential and what we could do as young student volunteers. So I don't think it was that, you know, we as a generation different to yourself and Tony had this special level of confidence. I think it was actually the projects that you created and that you set up for us that kind of unleashed that confidence in us. And I've seen that then subsequently when I went on to manage UCDVO. That was one of the most remarkable things, of just seeing the confidence really grow in young volunteers as they came through the programme. What would be your reflections on that, Sunita, in terms of the impact of the projects on volunteers, both the Indian volunteers and the Irish volunteers?
Thank you, Caroline. Confidence, which Tony and I saw in you, is because I think we said you're adults, and this was a training program, and training does not mean that you have to handhold. Training means that we are there to supervise if you make a mistake and to take the responsibility and the accountability of whatever you're doing. I think that gave you the confidence that the responsibility and accountability is not yours. You should do your best. And I have not had a single student in those 10 years when we ran the program where we ever felt that not a single student had pulled their, had to be pulled up or told that no, you are overslept, you can't. They managed it among themselves. Nobody could oversleep. The buses, the vans used to come at 8 a.m. If you missed the van, you couldn't go. And I remember once the student said they don't want to come on time, don't come. Because we have to go, we have a commitment, because the person at the community, at the NGO, whether it was Salam Balak or Mother Teresa, they were waiting. The time given, they were waiting. Sorry, next, what was your question?
And I suppose in terms of the impact on the students and the volunteers themselves.
I'm going to start a little backwards, like the setting up of the CEDC and the impact it's having today.
Yeah.
The impact it has on the community today speaks volumes of the kind of impact you created. Regarding the students, the Indian students I am aware of who were part of the volunteer system, remember we didn't have, now it's different, but in the years 2003, 4, 5, we did not have a concept of volunteerism, at least for the middle class and the upper middle class students, from where strata of society, from where most of these students came from. So for them to interact and to see for the first time what is volunteering was a superb experience.
Mm-hmm.
I think it changed their perspective. All of them, I know whoever been kept in touch, and I know most of them have kept in touch with you, Caroline, because as you are aware, I'm not on Facebook. So they have all done well in life. And I think that extra, and I feel, this is my personal opinion, this is both for the Irish and for the Indians, the ones who joined our volunteer program have done better than expected.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were not all of them were brilliant. Not all of them were, top level, like engineers or something like that, who were, ready made for the world, or they were IT professionals or things. But they've done excellent in whatever field they have chosen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you should share what some of our volunteers are doing, Caroline. That would be nice to know.
Yeah, it's been amazing. And actually, I think our first conference that we decided to hold in 2014, if I remember correctly, we called the conference Making a Difference, Experiences of Past Volunteers. And we invited some of our past volunteers to speak on a panel about the impact of international volunteering, both on their personal and professional lives. And we also gathered some case studies and stories from past volunteers through the UCDVO program. And like that, there are many who have gone on to work in international development, humanitarian work, or who have kind of adapted their career path to have a more humanitarian focus. So while we had architecture students, medical students, nursing students, and so on come through the UCDVO program, what I've seen is a lot of them kind of, I suppose, change the course of their subject to have a more development focus, which has been wonderful to see. We've seen people go up to work with the UN. We've seen people take up positions in big international organizations working all over the world. We've seen people leave their chosen subject field to go and do masters in humanitarian action or development studies. So yeah, it has a significant impact professionally, personally, and because it comes at such a transformative time in young people's lives. And I think equally we have seen that in the Indian volunteers as well. So I think, when we think about UCDVO and our partnership, we think about impact, and we think about the impact on the students, the volunteers, but primarily we think about impact on the communities. And I know the Community Education Development Centre was a real flagship programme, I suppose, for our partnership. And securing the funding from Irish Aid in 2008 was a real milestone, and getting that ongoing support from the Irish Embassy then throughout the development of the centre was really significant. And seeing that centre grow from 2008 to where it is now is really remarkable. And I think it's important to highlight that our volunteers were only on the ground really for the first 5 years of that centre, up to 2013. But since 2013, it has really been the community which have taken the lead, even though they were very much in that leadership role at the outset. But since 2013, seeing that transformation and that sense of ownership has been really significant. And I think that's a really important part in partnerships and in international development work as well, and particularly international volunteering work, that partnerships don't always have to have that element of people going, of student volunteers going, of people being on the ground. While that's hugely important, it has been really interesting to see how, when the volunteers have no longer been going for the 4-week programme, how the community have really taken that forward as well, and taken ownership. And while we've been able to obviously continue funding and continue maybe short visits over the years, and to keep our connection strong, it has been a credit to you and to Amita, to Kanti, to Neha, to Malti, to the members of the community who have really developed that centre to what it is today.
Thank you, Caroline. Thank you for your kind words. And let me assure you, without your support, without UCDVO financial support, it would have been extremely difficult, because spaces are created, but they do need, some amount of funds to run, because as you know, we do run a regular midday meal for the children there, and which of course you started and initiated, and it continues, and that has become actually a benchmark as an incentive or as a space where they know anybody's hungry, they can come and ask for the food, and we are distributing at all times, and the people have now acknowledged that it's wholesome, tasty, and it's food which you and I can go and eat. It's nothing, everything is cooked in the same manner. And of course, it encourages remedial teaching, which is for the 70 girls presently there. We range, as I had mentioned earlier also, the number of girls range from 80, 90. This is the lowest we've had. 70 is the lowest we've had in these COVID times for online teaching. I must add here, Caroline, that I think the community has made itself so aware, and it has also done a lot to sustain itself, is because of the continuous connect we've had with you people. So whether it is 2 people coming and wanting to document, or it is 5 people coming just to have a look at what has been happening, these visits are very important. And I'm very glad that we are restarting, albeit online, of course, the volunteering process once again, because, we are human beings, all of us, and we need a connection. Now, that physical connection is required at regular intervals, as I call it. Even if you come and you see, like when you were coming, you just had to visit. But hi, Caroline, how are you, Caroline? And now they are very excited that you got married and you have a girl, and for them, it's Caroline is family. So Caroline coming with the baby would be a family visit. That is the type, and that is what UCDVO brought.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the acknowledgement has to be given to all the volunteers who work there, and made all those people feel not alien, not that we are different, that we are one big family. It's a global family. I also would like to learn something from it. There was never a top-down approach, which is, I think, something in the development field we need to learn, because I, as a lecturer, have a top-down approach, for example. But thanks to this, I learned over the years that no, as a lecturer also, it has to be an equal partnership. The children can teach me a lot. Similarly here, because it was a partnership in the true sense of the word, whether it was the women and the volunteers, I mean, a women's group and the volunteers, or the children's group and the volunteers, or whether it was the small computer group or teaching them interviewing skills, so many different things which we did, always a partnership. And like I think I've mentioned it before, surprisingly, no lack of communication.
Mhm.
That has been a very surprising feature, that after a few days, they know exactly what the other person wants.
Yeah.
And they communicate.
I
That you can
remember
give your,
that arriving in with a group of volunteers, and you know, that nervousness at first of the new volunteer arriving into the centre, and one of their biggest questions was, you know, how are we going to communicate? You know, I don't know the local language. And equally that nervousness was there on the side, whether it was a women's group or a children's group. And then I would leave them kind of to it, and in a day or two I'd return, and they would be in full Indian dress, they would be dancing, they would have the drums out, they would have faces painted. It was just full of energy and life and connection, and like you're describing, and that sense of community. And the volunteers, and that's where I suppose I'm coming back to that confidence thing, that I don't think actually they even realized the level of confidence that they had, because they had never been in a situation that challenged them. And to be outside of your comfort zone brings that new realization of the qualities that you actually have inside you. So to see that in the faces of the women, the kids and the students was really remarkable. And I think one of the biggest highlights for everybody involved.
I think the communication part, because even our Indian students, though they are translators and facilitators, they said after a few days, we would see the volunteer going and speaking to a group and drawing something or writing something and figuring it out. Now, and here I mean, we have to, I would come back to Tony and say, what a vision. Because I remember the ambassador at that time, Irish ambassador to India, in 2003, he threw a party to welcome all the students. And he said, when he called me up, I mean, I was so surprised to receive a call from the Irish ambassador. And he said, are you sure that 20 students coming? I said, yes, they're here. He says, would you bring them over home? I said, sir, I mean, I didn't understand. And he said, to the residents, I'll send you this and that. And the confidence there of the Irish students, I have to share. They said, oh, we are going home. I said, what does that mean? We're going to the Irish ambassadors. No, Sunita, we are in India. The Irish ambassador's residence is home. I said, okay, understood. So it was fantastic. You know, and he was delighted and wanted to encourage us. And as you know the story, that in 2004, the Irish embassy wanted to do something, the development people, that let's do something. And that's how SWL got its first center in Kalkaji, where we were running a literacy center where the volunteers were working. That became a base for them. And then that still exists, and we still run small programs in it. And we've kept a small office also there, so that you know, we are where we are and the children come. We ran a small program until COVID times. There was regular programs and going on there also. So we are really happy about that, you know, an initiative taken way back in 2002-03 has borne so much fruit.
Absolutely. And when we think of the impact, like we were talking earlier just about the numbers and about how many people, you know, obviously it's very hard to estimate that, like, to calculate the transformation in people, but in terms of how many women and children maybe have been reached through SWL and WWHI's work, like you're estimating in around 50,000 over the 18 years, which I think actually is, it sounds about right, looking at the volumes of women that you have been supporting through the vocational skills training, through the distribution of dry food rations in recent times, as you described, through the computer education centres, the literacy centres, all of the work that when you put it all together, it really does add up to a huge amount of impact. And I would encourage those listening in today to have a look at swlwwhi.org. I will share the website here as well, because you've done a great job in capturing the story through the website and capturing that impact. And just there, when you mentioned about family, I think one of the things that really stands out for me, and I think stands out for a lot of our past volunteers, is your roof terrace at your home. And something that you always did was invite us as a group into your home. And even if there was 33 of us, you still invited all of us to come and enjoy some food. You even did a few cookery demonstrations.
Yes.
And we've always enjoyed a lovely cold beer on your roof terrace over the years with your husband Atul and Sushant and your daughter as well, your dogs in recent years, and certainly making us all feel very much at home. And I was thinking, you know, how kind of worrying it must have been for you as well to have all of these young people come to your city, which you knew obviously intimately and knew well, and for us to have such, I suppose, curiosity and youthful exuberance and wanting to jump in and out of rickshaws and to travel to all these places and to explore the city. And you looked after us, you know, you made sure that we were safe, but you didn't hold us back. You know, you gave us that freedom to experience and explore the city, which I suppose any mother, and I know I'm recently a new mother, and learning that of, you know, trying to keep young people safe, but allowing them to explore and to navigate new places is so important for all of our learning.
I must say, Caroline, thank you very much. Hospitality is, your home is my home. And that is something which we are born with in India. And I think even in Ireland, I find that similarity. Your home is my home. Please, whatever I have. It was fun. I enjoyed doing everything, every bit of inviting 30, 35 odd students over, answering all their questions. But if you remember, and I'll come back to something, we didn't, because I was a mother hen finally, and I was worried about safety. So we devised do's and don'ts. If you recall, we had those booklets, which was left, and everybody was told you have to read it. They would not, and I would insist, I'm going to ask you questions on it. Because the don'ts were it was, of course, cultural, very ethnic, and also to make the students understand that if you've backpacked through Europe, or if you backpack even through Bangkok, it's not the same as Delhi. So it was very difficult to explain that. And therefore we had these do's and don'ts. For the girls, for example, that, you know, in India, it's okay that we wear a sari and our midriff is showing, but we can't expose our shoulders. It's not accepted. And for the boys, it is, you can wear anything, but, you know, you're going to attract the sun and you're going to attract, you know, the mosquitoes if you're not covered. I mean, that was one basic rule. And you will get sunstroke. I mean, the problem was the sun. The tanning, it was not going to be tanning, you would be. So, but the other problem I had was the rickshaw. Now, and I'm going to share it here, though I know everybody's going to listen, but all the volunteers are going to absolutely go back. They wanted to ride with the rickshaw driver. They wanted to learn how to drive. It's extremely dangerous. Our rickshaws have no bars. They're not safe. They're not like the tuk-tuks of Bangkok, which are much safer. So I was always worried that they would fall off. So I actually went and banned. That was one of my strictest things. Nobody can drive with driver. You have to sit at the back, and they would love it because, of course, it's very hot. And rather than a taxi, you want to take something which is open. The other thing which I was always worried about is that, you know, the local people sometimes do take advantage of foreigners. And I didn't want anybody to be rooked, whether it was money-wise, whether it was being, kidnapped literally, that I'll take you home and I wouldn't know. I mean, finally, I did have mothers calling me once in a while to ask how their daughter was or how their son was, or there was a problem in Ireland and we had to, go back and forth and all that. So I was responsible that way. But certain things I can't forget. One incident I remember very clearly, that one, and I don't remember the name, fortunately, otherwise I would have mentioned it. One day this young boy comes and he went and he got his ears cleaned. I said, from where? He said, the man was sitting on the roadside. I said, I had a heart attack. I said, you'll be so badly infected. He said, no, it was quite clean. I mean, what amazed me, and I think I was much younger and much less experienced, I was horrified. And I was paranoid, and I think whoever was the supervisor in that year, I must have blasted them because I was so scared. I said, this ear infection is not going to go. Fortunately, nothing happened.
And I guess that's what I'm thinking about as well. It's just that curiosity that is in all of us when we go to a new place. And even I think that around the rickshaw drivers, because the curiosity was certainly from both sides. And anytime we would be in a rickshaw, we would always engage in some sort of conversation or communication with the driver, and they would be equally as interested in showing the Irish students how a rickshaw operates. So that lovely kind of exchange that happens naturally when you're walking down the street or when you're engaging in a new place. So it's really lovely to be able to reminisce with you, Sunita, about these really amazing experiences that we've been able to create and to capture through the UCDVO program. I'm just thinking about also kind of the culmination then of the visit from the UCD president to the CEDC and quite a senior delegation from UCD, including our Vice President for Global Engagement, Laura O'Riordan, our President, Professor Andrew Deeks, our Registrar, Mark Rogers, and a lot of other senior delegates have visited over the years. And I know that's been really important to have that kind of recognition of what UCDVO has created and has been part of in terms of our relationships in Delhi. So thank you for hosting those visits and for maintaining that link with UCD through other formats as well.
I just want to add something here, Caroline. I think the main surprise in Delhi, entire Delhi, was that 20 to 25 Irish used to walk together. That bonding, because I think right from the beginning, if you recall, you were not allowed televisions in your rooms, in the hostel rooms. That bonding, which started with that small gesture by Tony, no televisions, let them bond with each other. And everybody used to walk together. I think that attracted a lot of attention. People wanted to know what was happening. And I think that's what also went back through the Irish ambassador to UCD, to President Deeks, and to the whole group there, that there's something amazing happening in Delhi. Because see, volunteer work is not only done by UCDVO, it's done by a lot of organizations all over the world. Professor Deeks did mention, I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, he said, we came to know that something is happening and we were wondering what it was. And here, Caroline, thank you very much for coordinating that whole program, because we were so surprised. We were actually taken up by surprise that President of UCD would like to visit CEDC, but delighted also. And we welcomed him warmly, of course, and with banners, and the community arranged. They said, we'd like to welcome somebody who's coming from UCDVO's hometown. And so they didn't understand, obviously, who Professor Deeks was, but for them, it was somebody who wanted to come and who wanted to see the work being done by the Irish. So for us, it was very important to showcase the work done by the Irish volunteers.
Yeah, and
that was the important thing.
It really, just thinking about the current UCD strategy, which is called Rising to the Future, and it has a number of strategic themes. One is creating a sustainable global society. The other is transforming through digital technology, building a healthy world, and empowering humanity. And I think the work which we are describing here today is highly relevant to those strategic themes, and really illuminates what UCDVO has been doing in Delhi for such a long time. And I think around the digital technology, it's even evident seeing how the program is now transitioning into a virtual volunteering program. And this year, for the first time, I think since 2013, maybe the volunteer project is returning to Delhi, to the community in Sangam Vihar, through a virtual volunteer structure, which I think, you know, brings us all forward, moves things forward and moves us into a new space, a new landscape of interaction. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that develops. As we wrap up our conversation, Sunita, I know you have recently retired from your very successful academic career at the University of Delhi. And when you mentioned that you were retiring, I had a moment of panic of thinking, oh my goodness, are you retiring from your work with SWL and WWHI? But you reassured me and said, no, actually, in fact, you are going to dedicate more time now that you will no longer be teaching at the university. So what for you does the future hold in relation to the work in Sangam Vihar?
Well, Caroline, after 42 years of a regular teaching and research and all, actually, you'd be surprised. I wanted to just retire from, I don't think a teacher ever retires, because we got the online teaching going on, and I'm busy helping my young colleagues who are part of SWL now, Charu, Saloni, Neha, Amita, of course, she's the backbone, and she's my person who pushes me. We are busy designing the curriculum for the new volunteering program and basically designing the whole project now. So I'm very happy that I've retired at a very time where the need of the hour is much more to devote my time to this online teaching and, you know, distribution of ration, and my skills are being used for that, because I don't want to do a regular job now. I don't want to. I want to focus more on development work. I would like to take up some consultancies and help other NGOs or other organizations who would like to take a similar kind of work, and of course help in research, because we've done a lot in CEDC research on whether it was the health of the women or what is the skill development they like, and have you know, whether it was even teaching them English or to access the mobile phone. So a lot of research papers, research work has gone with other countries also. I'd like to continue doing that, but more or less like a consultant.
Yeah, that's amazing, and you've so much to offer. So no doubt that will be extremely beneficial for whoever is lucky enough to benefit from your knowledge and expertise. So we need to wrap up our conversation, Sunita. It has been such a pleasure talking with you today. I just want to share the SWL WWHI website here with everyone today, so you can see the website link, and you can see obviously the history which Sunita has recounted there is captured through the website. It has the projects, the midday meal scheme, the computer classes, so much which we couldn't cover today as well, the success stories over the years, and of course at the top here, the projects, the team, and a donate button if you would like to make a donation to support the work which Sunita and Anita are doing. Of course you can visit that website. In addition, the UCDVO.org website receives donations. So if you would like to donate, there will be an option to donate specifically to India projects through the UCDVO.org website as well. So Sunita, any closing remarks today as we wrap up our conversation?
Just thank you, UCDVO. Thank you, volunteers. Caroline, a very special thank you to you for encouraging us and giving us direction in many ways, and also supporting us whenever we felt low or when things are not working out. And of course, this is your idea, the virtual online volunteering, the program called Chalo Padho, Let's Learn. And I'm sure it'll be a huge success. But my last point is, all my old volunteers, we'd like to see you back. We'd like you to come and visit what you have made. In 2023 is 20 years. So our home is your home. You're most welcome. Keep in touch. Caroline is the conduit. I refuse to be on Facebook.
Well, yeah, and I should say that obviously I have moved on in terms of manager of UCDVO, and my colleagues Hilary, Zoe and Grace are taking the virtual volunteering forward, and are doing tremendous work there. But I think, you know, all the lessons over the years and all of the connections that we've created will serve that process well. And yeah, just to close, Sunita, by saying thank you so much. I'm looking forward to returning to your roof terrace and having a cold beer and talking about, I suppose, ways to address some of the bigger picture issues that are happening in our world today. So I look forward to my return to Delhi and hopping in a rickshaw again at some stage. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Caroline. Thank you for this opportunity.
So thank you so much to Sunita and Caroline for that wonderful and insightful discussion. It was such a pleasure to hear you discuss UCDVO's amazing programs in India, and also for sharing such wonderful memories and anecdotes. A huge thank you as well, of course, to UCDVO for the work that they do, and to Sunita for tuning in from Delhi. The benefits of the virtual world, I suppose. So before we wrap up, just a reminder that if you missed this or any of the webinar, or you just want to check out any of the other Global Perspective events, they are all available on this UCD Alumni YouTube channel. They're also available on the UCD Alumni Network. Also, the main UCD festival is starting online tomorrow and will feature conversations, performances, workshops and interactive demonstrations. So if you would like to attend or tune in for any of these events, you can register on our website, which is www.festival.ucd.ie. So thank you again for joining us this evening. It has been such a pleasure, and we look forward to welcoming you to our next event. Thank you and goodbye.